watching Desk-Bound Aviator, and this is a Southwest version of the Boeing 737-800, not the 737 MAX, so you don't have to worry about this one. Those are in storage being prepared. But we are here in Denver, and I want to do a flight with you on this aircraft to take a look at a feature that I discovered recently, and I'll explain it to you as we begin our journey down to Albuquerque, from Denver down to Albuquerque today. Not a real long distance flight, nice length. So we're watching this thing get loaded up here, which is kind of an interesting process with the catering services, delivering all the plastic wrapped peanuts and sandwiches that they need to do. A few boxes and suitcases and things being loaded down below, and some fuel being put in. So what I'm going to do is get this airplane started up and backed up and taxi out to the runway, and then we'll take off on our way to Albuquerque, and I'll explain to you what it was that I discovered. It has to do with a new and interesting way of making an RNAV approach. Some of you may have found that you can't use ILS on an RNAV approach. Well, there is a way that you can do almost an ILS approach, and I'll show you what that is. It's very interesting. So, as someone else in the X-Plane world is fond of saying, without further ado, I'll hop inside and get this airplane started, and I'll see you out there near runway 17 right, and we'll head off toward Albuquerque. Okay, see you soon. Okay, welcome back. Here on runway 17 right. We've got lights all set, engine set to continuous spark mode. Position lights are set properly. We've got transponder on, flaps down, auto brake on rejected takeoff. Cruise altitude 36,000, heading 170, nominal rotation speed set at 148, and everything else is in order. So I will increase the throttles up to 50%. Actually, I had them all the way up to 50%, but I'll do that again, and then we'll release the park brake and be on our way. And I have a key on my keyboard set to activate TOGA T key, and you see that that's indicated here, and there's our park brake, and we are underway. As soon as we get off here and clear of some of the altitude restrictions and so forth, I'll talk to you a little bit about this new system I discovered. Looking for 148.
V1, rotate.
There we go.
Positive rate.
Gear up. Brakes off. Engine back to auto.
400.
Lights. Navigation's okay. Autopilot activated. Just gotta get ourselves over to the line a little bit.
1,000.
Level out. Speed build up. One notch flaps back. indicator on the PFD over there, 187 or so. Bring the flaps up again. And the last one we're looking for is about 214 or so, 215, somewhere in there. Oh, maybe 208, but a little higher. I guess that'll work. So flaps are retracted. And we're climbing through 8,000 on our way to 10. We've got a speed restriction of 250 under 10,000 feet, which we will maintain. And we've also got a restriction on radar, R-A-Y-D-R, the first waypoint on our SID here, coming out of Denver. And that wants us to be below 10,000 feet until we pass that point. So we will abide by that. Check out everything else. And now that we're approaching 10,000 feet, I'll go ahead and extinguish the landing lights and then retract them. As soon as we pass radar, we'll see the FMC speed increase, and we'll be on our way. So what I discovered, a couple of interesting things. I was doing a flight similar to this, and I was looking at the FMC, and I'll actually show you a clip of that. I think, no, I guess I won't. I can show you on this FMC though. If we go over to the init ref page, what I was looking at the time was the setup page where I was setting up my landing and was choosing a runway to land on. I forget exactly what page that's called, but I saw pretty much the same thing, an indication of G/S and then on and off, the off being green. I didn't know what that was. So I asked my friend Brad if he knew what it was, and he didn't either. And so I posted a note to a friend of mine on one of the forums, and he has the distinction of being a real pilot. Well, actually, Brad is too, but that's another story. He's a pilot. He flies 777s, but he's very familiar with the 737 series and particularly Zibo. He told me that this indicates a system that I didn't know about. The system is called Integrated Approach Navigation, and Zibo has implemented it on this aircraft. And with it, IAN it's called, Integrated Approach Navigation. With it, you can land on selected RNAV runways that allow it with pretty much the same control as ILS. If you have a runway that isn't ILS equipped and is a GPS RNAV runway, as our runway here at Albuquerque, runway RNAV, runway GPS Y, runway 8, then you can use this system. And what it does is it replicates the performance of ILS, but backwards. Instead of the signal coming from the airport to the airplane, and the airplane picking up that signal and using it, the beam, or if you will, or however that works. In this case, the flight management system, the computer, is actually generating a signal, or it's generating a path to align with the runway and then to descend to it. So it's generating not only the lateral navigation, but also the vertical navigation. And the only difference between the two systems is the direction of the process. A second, I'll adjust our barrel here. The only difference between the two systems is the direction of the process. One is coming from the airport to the airplane, the other is coming from the airplane to the airport. Both work in pretty much the same fashion, and they both work very well. So I wanted to demonstrate that for you today, and that's the purpose of this flight. So we are now approaching one of our first waypoints here on our way up to cruise altitude, which will take place soon. And everything else seems to be cooking along here fine. So what I'll do is I'll let you take a break from the flight, and I'll bring you back as we approach Albuquerque and implement this integrated approach navigation system. And then I'll discuss some of the features of it, things you can look for. So I'll see you soon. Okay, we are slowly descending toward Lorac on our route here. And we're going to make a sharp left turn. We actually made turn prior to reaching that point. We're at 11,000 feet. And you see the beginnings of some indications of guidance on the PFD here. That demonstrates to us that our IAN integrated approach navigation system is alive and functioning. When we turn on the APP switch here, you will see displayed at the top of the PFD the terms FAC and G/P. Those stand for FAC is Final Approach Coarse, and G/P is Glide Path, as opposed to GS, which is Glide Slope. So instead of locator, it's FAC. Instead of GS, it's GP. And you'll see those up here, and they will turn green once the system has determined that the lateral navigation is locked in and the vertical navigation is locked in order to allow us to descend to the runway in a proper fashion. Now, my experience is that sometimes it's close but no cigar, and sometimes, particularly on the lateral navigation, I find that sometimes I have to turn off the autopilot and fly the airplane down, but it gets you in the immediate vicinity of the runway, sometimes better than others. So we'll see what happens today. And just to slow things down a little bit, I'll go ahead and drop one notch of flaps. That'll lower our FMC speed to 185. And we'll go ahead and implement APP and see what happens. So we get a display up here of FAC and GP, and they're in white, which indicates that we're not locked on yet. So now we have an indication that we've got FAC. That should soon cause the airplane to tilt to the left and bring us in alignment with the runway. Which it is now doing. Not getting the GP just yet, but we will shortly. And now we've got the strong signal of the GP. When that starts to drop down to the center point, it will activate and it'll turn green. You don't need to use both of the CMD switches using this system, since it's not using a radio signal to navigate. It's generating a signal to navigate. You really just use the one CMD. Now, when we do acquire the glide path, you'll probably see the VNAV switch turn off. The diamond is dropping, just like New Year's Day. And you'll probably also see the IAS map speed indicator light up with our 165 speed, our FMC speed that we're now doing. And then you can dial in your speed from that point. I generally wait until we're about a mile or two from the runway and turn the, maybe a little further than that, turn the auto throttle off and use manual speed control. And sometimes if you're not aligned just right with the runway, you may want to turn off the CMD and go off autopilot so you can manipulate the airplane properly.
1,000 to go.
All right, we're approaching, and there goes GP, and we've got the IAS max speed at 165. So we are now under guidance of the IAN system, Integrated Approach Navigation. I'll go ahead and flip on the CONT, continuous spark mode on the engines. And we can fire up the APU so that we've got power, ground power when we get on the land.
2,500.
I haven't got the APU bleed on. I'll leave that off until we're ready to park. Now, I've found that in many instances the diamond drops down as it's doing now below the center point, and that can be a little disconcerting, but the airplane catches that and starts to descend by itself. I'm going to go ahead and dial down our speed and give ourselves some more flaps. One more notch. As we pass this next waypoint, we can then go ahead and put gear down. Around 155 for now. And you see this diamond starting to come back up as we dip down and reacquire it, or adhere to it, is perhaps a better way to describe it. Looks like we're lined up pretty nicely. Happy lights are on. Good. Right in there. Got about a 5-knot wind, so we can use maybe 140 as our nominal threshold speed. Not sure what this cliff is. It's kind of strange. XPlane nonsense. All right, gear come down, flaps down, a little more.
Approaching.
Dial the speed down to 150.
1,000.
1,000 feet stabilized, Mr. Perch altitude set.
All right, I'm going to go manual throttle.
Approaching minimum 400, 300.
And it looks like we're a little bit off, so I'm going to flip off the...
Pull up.
100.
There we go.
50.
Well, a little sloppy. All right.
80 knots.
For your safety and those you'll fall on if you stand up, please stay seated. Your seatbelt fasten.
All right. Go ahead and take this exit.
We thank you so much for choosing us here at Southwest. Have a wonderful night. Remember, no one loves you or your money more than us here at Southwest Airlines. Come see us again.
Duck in here in front of this marker.
We're still in an active taxiway. We do need everyone seated with their seatbelt securely fastened. This means for your children. Make sure
All right.
they're seated with their
Pull
seatbelt
things
securely
up.
fastened. We are in an active taxiway. Thank you.
Taxi lights on. Transponder. There we go. Okay, so that's IAN, Integrated Approach Navigation. Probably not a flawless system, but it will get you down in the vicinity of the runway, and you should be able to land in inclement weather with that system. It was a little bit rocky there toward the end, trying to get lined up properly. You may want to consider, if you see that right away, you may want to consider turning off the autopilot just a little bit sooner, so you're not kind of wobbling around trying to figure out where the airplane is, as I was. That's the system, and it works pretty well. Hope you enjoyed that. I won't drag you along to park the aircraft. I really just wanted to demonstrate that system for you. And hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions about that or anything else pertaining to this aircraft particularly, or any other aircraft that you'd like to see, send me a note in the comments section. Always glad to see new viewers. I hope that was interesting to you, and I'll see you soon. This is Steve. Take care.